Hey there, Scholarly Gamers, and welcome to this week's episode of Jungle Drums. As you can see, I am once again alone. Look, it was not without trying. It's the beginning of the Easter holidays over here in the UK, so, basically what that means, everyone's on a long weekend, obviously. They're off Friday and Monday. For those of us at school, we're now just starting a fortnight, no, not the game, fortnight, 2 weeks of being off our Easter holidays. So sure enough, my buddies, one of them was out on the lash last night and is a bit fragile today, so unable to attend. And then likewise, my friends on the other side of the pond, it's a bit early for them because, let's be honest, most of them will be having a nice long lie-in today since they'll be off work. So with that said, I'm just going to soldier on, go solo, and we'll see what we can do. So, what's happened this week? First up, we're going to talk a little bit about tech. Now, if you've been keeping up to date with the latest trends in tech, specifically when it comes to PC hardware, you know that prices are just crazy, right? I mean, across the board, RAM, your memory prices, hard drive prices, graphics cards especially, thank you cryptocurrency miners, and even some CPUs and motherboards. We're at a very strange point where, if depending on the specification of the PC you want to build, if we're talking high-end parts, in most cases it's actually going to be cheaper to buy a pre-made system than build your own. Video cards is really the big crazy thing at the minute. For example, if you know the 1080 Ti, right, which is the flagship Nvidia card, the consumer level, sure, there's Volta and all that stuff. We know that, that's really, really expensive at the minute. But what's funny is if you look at the prices, right, a 1070 Ti, the price of one of those right now is basically the same as what the launch price before all the inflated prices of a 1080 Ti. And the price of a 1080 Ti is just silly money. But, it's affecting cards across the board, and it's a real shame. So on this subject, I came across an article from PC Gamer, and this was Nvidia's CEO, Jensen Huang, actually speaking up at the GPU Technology Conference, also known as GTC. And he stated, we're not anywhere close to meeting the demands for its GPUs. Right, so basically, right, oops, I had the wrong button there. GTC's been, happening this past week, and it's basically where they're all talking about all their different technologies and showing things off. And Jensen Huang had been involved in an interview with TechCrunch, a great site, check that out, so you should. And he came out with this statement, and this is word for word what he said. The video supply chain is working really hard, and all of our partners are working around the clock. We've got to come closer to the demand of the market, and right now we're not anywhere near close to that, and so we're just going to have to keep running. So basically, in other words, if you're hoping that graphic card prices are going to be, returning to normal anytime soon, it's probably not going to happen. Now, the demographic, the individuals that really seem to take the lion's share of this blame is, of course, cryptocurrency miners. But it was quite interesting because the CEO of Nvidia, Jensen, he stated, or claims, that only makes up a small percent of Nvidia's total market share. And, when you think about it, that is most likely true because, yes, you can, of course, use Nvidia cards for mining cryptocurrency, but if you keep tabs on these things, for the past year, 2 years even, the AMD cards have actually been better because remember, whilst a 1080 Ti or even something crazy like a Titan X and a Volta have insane raw performance, they're quite expensive, even at the normal prices. Whereas the AMD cards were coming in relatively cheaper. And whilst, watt for watt or whatever, yes, an Nvidia card might pull ahead. When you look at the price to performance ratio for mining, not for gaming, but for mining, the AMD cards had optimizations. So generally, if you are serious about mining cryptocurrency, it's all about looking at your initial investment versus, the price of your electricity usage over time, and then compare that to your output. There's no point in spending thousands and thousands on Nvidia cards and then having, like a crazy rig where you're using up a lot of electricity only just to make a tiny little profit each month due to the electricity bills and the upkeep of the equipment. Whereas a lot of the AMD cards were actually better in the long run for cryptocurrency miners. So it's quite interesting. Jensen saying, look, gamers are the big piece of the pie when it comes to the demand for the Nvidia cards. And allegedly that is why, that there's so much of a demand. People want to experience, high frame rates, high resolutions. Of course, 4K gaming is in the forefront at the minute. Even so, there's not very many 4K HDR panels, and the ones that are coming are going to cost you an arm and a leg. But hey, never mind. It's interesting. A key aspect with the lack of supply as well for video cards is also linked not just to the GPUs. Now, because remember, a graphics card is the card itself, right? The GPU is the actual processing unit, right? A lot of people mistakenly just refer to graphics card as GPUs, and that's not correct, right? The GPU is the actual graphical processing unit on a graphics card. So now, Nvidia has no problem making their own GPUs, right? They fabricate them, blah, 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 blah. The issue is on a memory card, a graphics card, you need memory, right? And so you look at the trends, and AMD has been going with HBM2, whereas Nvidia, for the most part, aside from things like Volta and possibly the upcoming cards, use GDDR5. And that is where one of the issues is. The GDDR5 supply is really, really quite low. There's only a few manufacturers of DDR5, and so that's causing a lot of issues worldwide. Even when it comes to other DDR, your DDR4, not the GDDR, which is for graphics cards, your normal memory, there's, that's why the prices are so high right now. I was looking, on Amazon, for example, and just seeing the trend. What I like to do is I put items on my wish list and I just leave them there because I like to see the fluctuations, and if I can get it at like a super heavy discount, because it will show you, 30%, 36% cheaper than when you added it. That's when I like to kind of jump on things. So, my next kind of PC build is always just sitting there in the wish list to see. And if anything, the prices of some of the components have actually just risen. But so there you go. But yeah, so Nvidia, they're saying they can't meet the demand. There's another quote from him saying that he's frustrated that so many developers and gamers around the world cannot get access to their GeForces. And it could be quite a while till affordable consumer level graphics cards are available again. So look, if you're sitting pretty with your PC at the minute and you've got decent hardware, you're absolutely fine. If you're looking to try to build one, honestly, try to see what you can find pre-built, because I'm a huge believer in building your own systems, right? I mean, I wouldn't recommend it, not doing that to anybody, but right now it's just, you're gonna pay over the odds if you do build your own PC, and it sucks. It really does suck. I'm not saying to go out and buy a Dell or anything like that, but look at some of these boutique manufacturers. Your places like Origin, over here in the UK, Overclockers UK, Utopia, Respawn Gaming. Lots of great brands out there. if you're looking at the high end. If you're looking in the mid level, then yeah, you might be able to just kind of get a few cheap parts here and there. And when it comes to buying graphics cards second hand, be careful, because even the prices of second hand video cards are super inflated, and unfortunately you don't know if that card has been used for cryptocurrency mining, because if it has, keep in mind that card will have been used 24/7 at maximum load for who knows how long. So then you get it and you want a game with it, and it might already be just completely knackered. So just keep that in mind. But forget about video cards for right now. You've already got one, don't you? So a game that really showed off, the power of your PC was No Man's Sky, right? When No Man's Sky, and yeah, I can hear you cringing already. When No Man's Sky released, yes, it was kind of a disappointment for a lot of people. There was a lot of things that were promised with that game, and it didn't quite deliver. Now, if I'm honest, I actually quite enjoyed the game for what it was. Running around and mining things, and occasionally flying to other planets and stuff. It was a cool game, but it was a good-looking game. I think when it comes to the whole space travel concept, I think it did it quite well. But yeah, there was a lot of things kind of missing. Now, they did address this last year a little bit with was it Atlas Rises? Yeah, Atlas Rises was the update that launched back in August, and that was pretty darn good. That added quite a lot of stuff, being able to build the bases and whatnot. And if I'm honest, I've just been caught up with other games that haven't really had the opportunity to just sit down and really play some No Man's Sky. Hey, first world gamer problems, right? Too many games to play. But what's quite interesting is this newest piece of news, which I sourced from Eurogamer.net, and it's about No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky is headed to Xbox One, and the next big update is also arriving this summer, which Sean Murray from Hello Games says that this is the biggest update so far. So this new update is codenamed, well, not codenamed, I think the final name of it is Next, in all capitals. And the justification for that name is because, according to Sean Murray, it's an important next step on a longer journey for us and the community. Aside from that, there is no word exactly on what Next is going to bring to No Man's Sky. Sean Murray he's quoted as saying, look, it's the biggest update so far. It's so big, in fact, that it gets its own, cool logo. Let's have a look. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, nice. That's well done. Well done. But anyway, there's been quite a few updates, because there was the Foundation update, there was the Pathfinder update, there was Atlas Rises update, and if we're completely honest, they have all really changed the scope of the game. They've added a lot, the base building, the farming, the vehicles to go explore stuff, quests, but the big thing that they've kind of implemented slightly, but they haven't expanded on, is of course multiplayer, because they claimed that multiplayer was going to be in the game, and when people couldn't run into each other, the devs kind of rebutted with, well, the universe is huge, the chances of you encountering another life form is it's so slim. That's why we haven't encountered aliens. But then, as it turned out, sure enough, there was two players that found themselves in the exact same system, exact same planet, on the exact same area, and yeah, they couldn't see each other. So, but anyway, some of the speculation is that this next update is going to introduce multiplayer. So we'll see. We don't know. We don't know what is actually going to come in. Hopefully, there'll be a few leaks in the near future. Funnily enough, this announcement on Twitter was pushed out by Sean Murray because he said it was about to leak. So there you go. One of the interesting things, though, in addition to the update, is that No Man's Sky will be coming to the Xbox One. Because, of course, it was only available on PC and the PS4. As it turns out, it was an exclusivity deal that now is coming to an end. So the Xbox One version is going to include all the previous updates, as well as the next update whenever the Xbox version launches. So that's quite cool. It'll all be in one package. And of course, it's going to be enhanced for the Xbox One X with both HDR and 4K support. And from what I'm reading here, is they're claiming that a physical edition will also be released for all you gamers out there that prefer to own physical copies of your games. So pretty cool. It'll be interesting to see. No doubt when it comes out on the One, a lot of folk who that's their only way to play games, they'll be finally getting to experience No Man's Sky as all of us did. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that, and I'll have to try it out, see what this next update adds. Speaking of 4K gaming, 4K gaming is something that, you have to have just completely beastly hardware. If we're talking about PCs, in order to pull that off. And then one of the downsides of 4K gaming is that, at least from the PC side of things, trying to find a good 4K monitor is really quite difficult, because you have to end up choosing. If you want 4K and HDR, the pickings are extremely slim. And the ones that are out there have a pretty darn low refresh rate, and their specs aren't great either. And then if you're a console gamer with a PlayStation 4 Pro or an Xbox One X, let's be honest, usually you're kind of, you have to resort to using a television of some kind. And if we're honest, a lot of the affordable 4K TVs that come with HDR, they're quite abysmal when it comes to gaming. It wouldn't have been so bad like on a normal base console that, that have low FPS. You might not notice it as bad. But on the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X, you can see the difference. If you've got a cheap 4K TV, you're not doing it any justice. And unfortunately, the expensive ones that are out there are just, they're crazy money. That's why I myself have not bought a 4K telly yet. We're waiting. But what is often overlooked is 1440 displays. So I came across this review over at PC Games N. PC Games N? Yeah, that's the name of the site. And it's about a monitor from BenQ. And what caught my attention was that the headline said, almost the perfect gaming monitor for Far Cry 5. Now, of course, this was quite topical, because just earlier this week, a good friend Marcus there had put out a wonderful review of Far Cry 5, which, the game just looks absolutely fantastic and stunning. I am yet to purchase Far Cry 5 myself, but just reading a review and also watching him stream some of the gameplay, it's made me want to fire up Far Cry 4 and just play it, for shits and giggles till I can purchase Far Cry 5. But anyway, on to this monitor, right? So it's from BenQ, and the model number is the EX3501R. And so it looks quite interesting, right? So it's a 21:9 panel, so that's the ultra-wide monitors, which, if you're just gaming, right, if that's your kind of key thing, or I should say the primary purpose of your PC, or even actually if you're doing a lot of video editing or artwork or stuff, the key thing I'm trying to say is, if you're not streaming, if you don't need a multi-monitor setup, then a super ultra wide is quite a good choice, because for gaming it's glorious. You've got this beautiful 21:9 ratio. And so this model from BenQ, it's a 35-inch monitor, 21:9. It's got a resolution of 3440 by 1440. So that's in, but the 1440p is often referred to as 2K, because it's the resolution that sits between 1080 and 4K. Games look absolutely fantastic. I know a lot of people that really kind of claim that the jump from 1440 to 4K isn't that significant. Like, it's more how how to put it, like, it's more significant jumping from 1080 to 1440 than 1440 to 4K, but that's all personal preference, to each their own. In addition to all these, specs, it's got HDR10 support, so okay, now you've got my attention, and it's got a refresh rate of 100 Hz. Now you might be saying, oh, but look, you can get 144s and 200s and whatnot. And yes, you're absolutely right, as long as you've got the hardware to push that refresh rate. 1440p with 100 Hz refresh rate, that's a pretty good balance right there. Plus it's got HDR10. The thing about it though, it has AMD FreeSync. So, if you're using an Nvidia card, you're not going to get that benefit. But if you've got an Xbox One X, for example, and we know the Xbox One X supports 1440p now, I think they put the patch in, or if not, it's coming. This could be quite a good alternative to a 4K TV. Can you imagine having a 2K 35-inch ultra-wide? Oh, and of course, it is curved. If I pull up the image again real quick of it, it's a good-looking monitor. But yeah, the specs of it look good. The response time is okay. Nothing super stellar, but when you keep in mind that this monitor is, likely going to be half the price of what an equivalent 4K monitor would be, that's not bad. I mean, I know, like, my PC, I don't have the hardware to push a 4K display, but I could do a 1440. So it's quite interesting. It was a good review, and basically the reviewer here, the author, had applied the lens of Far Cry 5 to it, because funnily enough on PC, Far Cry 5 works really well with AMD cards, and it looks really, really good. The combination of it being HDR, having FreeSync, widescreen curve, or super ultra wide widescreen, it looks like a nice bit of kit, and so their site there gave it an 8 out of 10. On the downside, it's only got a rating of about 300 nits, so in my opinion, the HDR isn't going to be as poppin' as it could be. But for the price, for the size, the resolution, and the specs, it's not a bad monitor at all. It'd be nice if I could get one to review myself. That'd be great. So Ben Q, if you're out there listening, feel free to just to send me one, and I'll see firsthand what it's like. Right, joking aside, a game that we have not discussed in absolutely ages, and it's a game that a lot of people are upset about. It's of course Destiny 2. So many Destiny fans out there had high hopes for Destiny 2, and when it launched, yes, it was good looking. It's a very graphically pleasing game. The gameplay initially was fine. The story was okay. Yes, we got a little bit more than the first one. But if you've been keeping up to date with Destiny 2, well, everyone knows, no one's playing it, right? The content creators, the streamers, the YouTubers, they've all moved on. They're all doing other things. They're still keeping an eye on Destiny 2 to see if something's going to happen with it, but nothing has been happening until this week. So I sourced this from Polygon, and so this week the Go Fast update had launched in patch 1.1.4. And so the Polygon article is about the 5 things to know about this new update. If you've been keeping tabs on Destiny 2, you know this has been coming, right? You know this has been happening, or going to be coming. And, the patch is doing all sorts of things. It's done some class rebalancing, some weapon tweaking, brand new rewards, and whatnot. So the 5 big things that have came up, according to this article, are, number 1, strike-specific loot. Remember in Destiny 1, when they introduced this, you could get certain weapons from certain bosses in the strikes. So finally, yes, they've put that in the game. The catch is you can only acquire the strike-specific loot during the weekly Nightfall. For example, this week's Nightfall, of course, is Pyramidium, and if you get lucky, you will get the sniper rifle called Silicon Neuroma. The drop rate is extremely low, but as your Nightfall score increases, so will your chances of receiving the weapon as a drop. So that's pretty cool. Might have to actually see what the boys are doing and try to fire up and have a look. The next one here says is repetition reduction. And of course it's talking about things like exotics. Remember when they said that they were putting in an algorithm of some kind that was going to try to help out, that so when you had an engram of some kind, it would scan, see what you don't have, and try to steer it towards giving you that rather than a duplicate. Well, yeah, it didn't quite work out that way. Sure enough, they've adjusted some things, and what they've came out and said is it is now impossible to get back-to-back duplicate exotics from exotic engrams. So there you go. You will also, another bit of the repetition was the playlists when it came to Crucible maps and strikes. How many times did you go into a playlist and end up doing the same strike or even getting the same Crucible map, consecutively? Well, they've removed that as well. That's never going to happen. You will never again have the same strike twice in a row. So that's pretty cool. Number 3 is that Dawn Blades are finally good, which, I thought Dawn Blade was okay. It was, quite fun. What this patch has done is done all sorts of balance changes. The Titan Dash is back out to the way it used to be. The Arc Staff got a whole bunch of buffs. And Super Generation as a whole has been given a significant boost. But according to this article, the real star of the update is the Dawnblade Warlock. They've basically given it a general speed increase to the Warlock's Glide, allowing you as a Warlock to go extremely fast if you do it correctly. They've also buffed the Dawnblade's super, the Daybreak super, so it now lasts longer and you can throw even more fiery swords upon your enemies. And so they've got a little clip here, if I just pull it up, to basically kind of show how fast you can actually go. So you Dawnblade Warlocks out there, you're in for a treat. Crucible changes have now returned things to the way they were in the original Destiny. Let's be honest, Crucible and Destiny 2 got a hell of a lot of negative attention. People would just moan about it all the time. It was too slow, it was too team-orientated. And so what they've done is they're kicking it up with Iron Banner, is now back to 6v6 rather than the original 4v4. Power ammo drops are more frequent than they were before, and players end up dropping a percentage of any power ammo they have when they die. If you combine that with the super increases that they've also implemented, the Crucible has definitely been given a nice boost. And of course, the last key thing that they're saying about this update and patch is quite good. It's got the little headline, "So many guns." It wouldn't be a Destiny patch without gun changes. So every major weapon archetype has gotten some kind of buff. Shotguns and snipers are getting higher PvE damage as well as more ammo. Grenade launchers will actually have larger explosions than they did before. Linear fusion rifles are getting massive buffs in PvE. Submachine guns and sidearms are also going to be getting, or have gotten already, bonus ammo and damage. Hand cannons and scout rifles are seeing buffs across the board, and pulse rifles have been completely reworked to be far more desirable. In fact, I'm sure I saw a video just earlier this week from MTashed saying that Vigilance Wing is now, once again, the new meta. You might have noticed I haven't mentioned anything about auto rifles. Auto rifles were fine, in fact. If anything, they haven't adjusted to auto rifles, and instead they've buffed everything else. So there you go. Destiny 2, it might be worth having a look at. I'm not saying that there's a whole bunch of content for us to jump into and, be reinvigorated for the game, but it sounds like for the PvP crowd out there, you've definitely got some things to get your interest back to Destiny 2. So I'll see if over the next couple of weeks I can try to get a bit of time on myself hands-on and see what I think. Right, last bit of news. Usually I try to steer away from drama. I like to mainly talk about gaming news and tech news. But I did want to just make a brief mention of this. Because if you remember a couple of weeks ago, I'd mentioned Ninja, the Twitch streamer who had hit, the most followed channel on Twitch, had also gained a lot of really good exposure for the platform by playing with Drake. This was followed up, I think it was at MSNBC over in the States. He did a really good interview talking about the business side of things, and he really, really gave off a good positive vibe. And, just looked like he was being a good role model or speaker, for the platform. Because, when it comes to the face of Twitch, there's a lot of debate out there. Some people think someone who claims they are is, a bit distasteful, which, of course, is just an act. But Ninja had kind of, been greeted with open arms, a great kid, all sorts of stuff going for him. And unfortunately, this week had a little bit of a slip up. So, it's all over the internet. It's on Twitter. I just grabbed an article from Kotaku. Yes, I know, Kotaku. But, it was unfortunately about Ninja rapping a slur. And, we've seen this so many times when someone's really, really in the spotlight, whether that's on YouTube, whether that's on Twitch, they're put under the microscope. And things that may have happened previously and no one really thought anything of it. As soon as your audience has exponentially increased, it really, really gets noticed. For a bit of context here, what was happening was Ninja was playing, I believe, was it with Nade Shot? Was it? Yeah, I think it was Nade Shot. And they were playing Fortnite, and they wanted a really, really good song to just jam to whilst they were playing Fortnite Battle Royale. So they put on Logic's 44 More. And, Ninja was just kind of singing along with it and stuff. He started ad-libbing. And then, unfortunately, the N-word, the racial slur, slipped out. And, of course, it was in front of thousands of folk. And so as you can imagine, there was sensationalism all over the place. I mean, don't get me wrong, I am not defending the use of the word, because it's a word that is horrible, a word that is, disrespectful and shouldn't be used. Yet, in popular culture, we see it all the time in certain music videos. Hell, if you watch some live gaming streams on YouTube, there's some communities that, holy crap, they use it as a comma or an apostrophe. That's how they break up their sentences, some of the streamers out there. But anyway, it slipped out, and sure enough, folk just took to social media, just attacking him. Oh, looks like Ninja already dropped the N-word. Shake my head. And I had high hopes for him. So the typical types of reactions. What you make of it, is entirely up to you. He was singing along with a song, and the song said that. So whether or not that's him being racist, I don't quite buy that. But again, we get into stuff that I don't really want to get into. Regardless of what happened and what people's reactions were to it, Ninja did come out on Twitter, saying, look, apologizing. He said, whilst I'm confident that most of this is a misunderstanding, I recognize that it's my responsibility to never let there be this kind of a misunderstanding. More than anything, I hate that any of my friends, fans, or viewers might feel disrespected. And, he goes on to really trying to explain, what happened, even addressing the fact that the word has historically been used to divide people, whereas Ninja, of course, is about bringing people together. He promises that there was no malicious intent. Even claiming here that he wasn't trying to say that word necessarily, ended up fumbling the lyrics, and he got tongue-tied in the worst possible way. But, he did say that he apologized, and it's just I don't want to come off as if I'm trying to justify the kid, because I'm not. But if you stream, if you're doing stuff live, yourself, it is so difficult sometimes because you're trying to play something and you're trying to look at chat, you're trying to do all these things. Your brain, you're trying to operate 5 steps ahead, right? Because otherwise you end up, you're like a deer in the headlights. And, unfortunately, I think Ninja's just had a lot of attention over the last couple of weeks in a really, really good way. And just, he got caught out here. Hopefully he can come back from this. Hopefully it doesn't affect him negatively. Hopefully he doesn't lose sponsorships or anything like that. It's just a case of, look, hey, for all you other streamers out there, just be careful what you say. Because even so, you might not think you're being offensive. You might not have any kind of malicious intent in what you say. In today's world, that doesn't matter. It's not about you and your intent. It's about how other people interpret it. And that seems to be, the way the world works these days. Whether that's right or wrong, that's for you to decide. But it happens in the workplace too. You can have Party A and Party B flirting with each other. Party A and Party B might really be into each other. Party A and Party B, might have no problems with their conversation. But Party C, who is within earshot, feels uncomfortable. They can report that to their boss, management, HR, whatever, and stuff will happen. I've seen it myself firsthand, with a little bit of what we used to call banter, in the workplace. That, like, even in a room with multiple folk, but if one person is offended or, doesn't quite like the conversation, it's well within their right to do that. So, be mindful of other people. That's all I'm trying to say. But anyway, look, that's the last article for today. I have been promised that I will not be alone next week. I was actually giving Jay... well, I wasn't giving a bollocking. I was just like, hey, what's going on? Where are you? And he's like, oh, look, I'm really, really sorry. But from next week onwards, he should be around for Jungle Drums on a Thursday. And hopefully Gim, we can get Gim on as well, because Gim's just not been feeling too well. I also want to try to get more of the Scholarly Gamers crew on episodes when I can. I did try this morning to contact a couple of people, but hey, it's the Easter weekend. Folk are doing stuff with their families. Completely understandable. Make sure to check out the rest of ScholarlyGamers.com. Of course, Armchair Gaming just dropped yesterday. If you don't watch that show, you're missing out, right? I mean, the philosophy itself is just fascinating. But the way that Sheldon, the Unbearable Gamer, puts it across and then uses, the game that he's playing as like the lens, or to kind of explain things. It's just brilliant. You need to check it out, right? And also some great articles this week. Of course, the Far Cry 5 review, which did excellent, well received by everyone out there. Thank you so much for reading that. I know Marcus appreciates it. And next week, we should have some more great stuff coming up. I don't know if we've got any reviews in the pipeline, but I know we've got some great articles. And, of course, we have a brand new video series starting next week. Should be out on Thursday. And so we'll see how that is. Look forward to it. Anyway, folks, have a great Easter, regardless if you're celebrating or not. No doubt you'll probably be buying chocolate Easter eggs and Easter bunnies for your kids if you have them. I've got my Easter egg through there, so I'll be getting into that at some point this weekend. In the meantime, look, stay safe, have fun, play some games, and I'll catch you next week.